Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. California Governor Gavin Newsom has become a bit of a divisive figure within American politics in his tenure as governor of California. It seemed, a Democrat or Republican, it wasn't hard to find something not to like, either about how he governed or what he said. For Republicans, he was always on the enemies list. Just being a Democratic governor alone was something they had a problem with, pointing to things like his response to the recent California wildfires as evidence of his incompetence as a leader. Though considering how brash and outspoken he is, you would think they would gravitate towards him, since they do love the equally brash and outspoken Donald Trump. But as a dreaded Democrat, of course, they would never accept him. Even those of his own party often have some bone to pick with the governor. While they also don't always have best opinion about how he governs, oftentimes the things that they have greatest issue with are not how he does things, but what he says. Came under fire during the 2024 election when he was quoted as saying that he thought one of Donald Trump's campaign ads claiming the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris supported taxpayer-funded sex change operations for prisoners and illegal aliens as a, quote, good ad. Or earlier this year, where on his podcast he was heard claiming that he felt it was unfair for transgender girls to participate in sports with other athletes who were born assigned female at birth. But it is in spite of all of these less than favorable opinions of him that he's emerging as one of the most outspoken and galvanizing voices within the Democratic sphere. His seeming lack of filter, which depending on how it's employed is often off-putting to some, is seen by others as one of his greatest strengths in a time where the perception of Democrats is that they're weak and timid, afraid to speak up to those in power and say what needs to be said. Newsom is seen as kind of kicking down the door and saying whatever he wants and doesn't care what people think about it, which in some ways does seem a bit ironic, since that's exactly the type of mindset that drew many Republicans to current President Donald Trump. But while Gavin Newsom shares that character trait or character flaw, depending on how you look at it, he is no Donald Trump. While I myself don't usually go for the brash, shoot from the hip types of guys, I have to admit he's starting to win over even me. While I've often felt that the perception of Democrats as the cowardly, weak party, constantly trying to search for bipartisanship and never actually doing anything, was often a bit overblown, I of course could never deny that there was a great deal of truth to that, and that Gavin Newsom himself really embodies the opposite. And that's the kind of image Democrats really need to embrace if they're going to continue to succeed in the current political climate. I don't think we really need a Donald Trump but Democrat. I have to admit, I do enjoy seeing someone use the Donald Trumpisms of just saying whatever they think at whoever they want used against him. If Gavin thinks Donald Trump is dementia-ridden and needs to take his meds, he'll say it. And you know most Democratic leaders wouldn't dare to say something like that. And saying the stuff that others wouldn't dare to is something that a lot of, especially younger people on the left, are very attracted to. He's the maverick the Democratic Party really needs, and the Democratic establishment needs to stop rejecting. I think one of the Democrats' greatest failings is their seeming refusal to really engage with younger voters, leading to a perception that Democrats are old and out of touch, which I mean is kind of true. And as many have said, that is why they have had so much trouble succeeding, and one of the many reasons that they lost in the 2024 election. So it seems like Governor Gavin is seeing that trend and trying to reverse it. In the wake of the death of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, he announced an initiative calling for 10,000 young men to serve as mentors, tutors, and coaches through nonprofit organizations and state-run programs. He framed it as a response to the growing trend among young people to be isolated and a higher-than-average suicide rate, especially amongst young men, a group that the late Charlie Kirk was known for being very popular with and reaching out towards. He cited a, quote, epidemic of loneliness, cited how many online communities prey upon that and fill the hole in those young men with often radical and seemingly dangerous ideals, which of course in extreme cases gives us people like Tyler Robinson, the man who shot Charlie Kirk. And yeah, I kind of agree. While I absolutely despise the things he said and the rhetoric he pushed, I think Charlie Kirk made young men feel heard and seen in ways Democrats could only wish they could tap into. One of the Democrats' greatest messaging faults is not making young men feel like they're a priority and cared about by the Democratic Party. And those same young men internalize that message, and it pushes them farther to the right. And once deeply entrenched in the right-wing rhetoric, it's seemingly impossible to get them pulled back out. And those numbers seem to just grow exponentially as the Democrats fail over and over to attract those same young men into the Democratic fold. Man, embracing Gavin Newsom is hard for me, especially. He's always struck me as this slick, smarmy guy, beholden to the same sort of big money corporate donors that a lot of other establishment Democrats are too. I mean, sure, I love when he calls Donald Trump an feeble-minded and old, because, I mean, it's true. He is. And I like how he seems at least seemingly unshackled by a lot of the decorum and sort of bipartisan mindset that holds back a lot of other Democrats. But he's just never really struck me as, my guy, the one that I can point to and say, yes, that's what Democrats should be like. He's got some good aspects and, things that I would like to see more in other Democratic leaders. But for me, he's still got a lot of negative spots. Then I can't help but feel that a lot of his outspokenness and good ideas are really all in service of a forthcoming bid for the Democratic candidate in the next general election. So I do kind of feel like he's amassing goodwill for his own ends, a way to get himself on the ticket and hopefully into the White House. And it leaves me thinking, would I really want to vote for President Newsom? I think he's shown through many of his comments that he's not quite as progressive as I would like for a Democratic candidate to be. And I'm getting really tired of the whole vote blue no matter who. I don't know if I feel like he would really be pushing the points and issues that I myself care about. Sure, he's not like other Democrats, but also he kind of is. He's still very corporate backed, something that I have never found very appealing in Democrats, or really any politician, regardless of which side of the political aisle they're on. So he's great at talking, but I don't know how much he would be great at leading in the big presidential chair. I really do commend him for identifying and at least seeming to address one of the faults in the Democratic messaging and one of the things that Republicans have made great strides in, which is addressing disenfranchised young men, because the lonely man to red hat pipeline is real, and those on the right have exploited that for a long time, and they've become very good at it. Guys like Charlie Kirk were very adept at filling those young, impressionable minds with right-wing ideologies and locking in those guys onto their side. The Dems have yet to really find their own way of bringing in those guys to their side at that crucial time in their lives. I don't think Gavin Newsom is the solution, but I do think that he's part of the solution. He's a piece of the greater whole of redrawing the Democrats as a less isolated, out-of-touch group that doesn't listen to young people or have their concerns in mind as something that needs addressing. Republicans have known that outreach to those young men voters are a path to victory, and they've used it to great effect in these last few elections. And bafflingly, when they analyze why they lose, Democrats never seem to pick up on this fact and use it to their own advantage. There's this perception amongst them that the Democrats don't care about me, so why should I care about them? And those on the right are quick to say, see, they don't care about you. But we do. Come over to the Republican side. So I have to really hope that this push by Gavin Newsom to address this issue will inspire other Democratic governors and Democratic leaders to do similar. Reach out to these guys before they become radicalized to the right and conservative ideologies. Make them feel heard. Make them feel cared about. Make them feel valued. Because when you get down to it, that's the thing that they're lacking, that the right has latched onto. Young men are increasingly feeling abandoned and undervalued by the left. So they view it the only path forward as the path towards the right. Whatever Gavin Newsom's numerous faults are, and I think we have to admit that there are quite a few, he's at least making the effort. He's at least speaking out where others stay silent. And that may be one of his greatest strengths, his unwavering desire to always speak his mind and not be encumbered by political decorum or being locked into the Democratic brand talking points. I'm not sure I like Gavin Newsom as a guy. And as a non-Californian, I don't really have to deal with him as a governor. And even if he is a Democrat, I don't know if I really like him as a president. But as an outspoken Democratic voice, I have to say I like him. I don't love him, just like him. He's at least an example of what Democrats could be more like if they want to gain back a lot of their losses amongst young male voters and just change the perception of them being just not all that appealing, to a point that when given a choice between Republican and Democrat, many younger voters just chose not to vote at all. If they had to pick between what they saw as the lessers of two evils, they would rather just not participate at all. And that kind of thing always benefits the Republicans. Because voter turnout is not something Republicans have ever had to struggle with, and Democrats have seemingly need every single vote they could possibly get. So if Gavin Newsom is part of the new direction for the Democratic Party, bringing young men back towards the Democratic side, I'm all here for it. It's a good start, and I hope we see a lot more going forward, especially in these upcoming midterm elections and ultimately into the forthcoming general election to get a new president. Alright guys, that's it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time when I cut you off another slice of news.